Hello and welcome to Feel the Vibes Live. And tonight we're streaming live in our group and on YouTube again. So we're getting very technical these days, and it's it's all good stuff. So tonight we're going to be talking about the shadow self. And so far we've got with us Jo and Mama Jen and Claire, and of course I'm Mel, who you're used to these dulcet tones. And so what is the shadow self? Jo, can you talk us through this one, please?
So the shadow self really is made famous by the psychologist Carl Jung, who said that we have separate parts of our personality, the one that we're consciously aware of, and then the one that we're not consciously aware of. So it's that part of us that we don't really like. So the part of us that we kind of don't want to accept or acknowledge is there. So according to Jung, we all have this mask or persona that we show to the world, and we want to fit in. So we want to people please, and we try and focus more on the qualities that we think people assume that we should have, rather than our actual characteristics and qualities, if that makes sense. So it's basically the dark side of us. We've all got one. To make a whole being, you have to be light and dark, as he would have put it. So it really is that part of us that is primitive. So it's those negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions that, and we see that as something not very nice. So we kind of suppress it, and that's where the issue come. When you try and suppress it, eventually it will come out, and it'll manifest itself in lots of different ways. But so the suppression part of it is a real issue, and that's what people do. They try and say that they're not that, and they're not feeling like that, and try and ignore it or purposely avoid it. And his work was all about trying to get people to integrate those two parts of themselves. So rather than ignore it and try and avoid it, to really integrate it into who you are. So be very mindful of what you're thinking and feeling, and accepting that you're not always making the right decisions, you're not always feeling happy and positive. There is that side that, everything can't be rosy all the time, because we are human beings and we feel different things, and we're programmed a lot by what happens to us in our past as well. So things that people have said to us, we can hold on to that, and that becomes part of that shadow self. And when we're trying to suppress that or ignore it, and it pops up and manifests itself, that is basically our shadow behavior. So that's when we start to act out, much like a child would if they're having a bit of a paddy, is probably the best analogy to use. So that would be the shadow behaviors, and then the shadow work is the work that you do to try and integrate those qualities that may be not very nice. And then I've got a couple of quotes.
Can I just 1 second, Jo, because I think there's a little bit of feedback on somebody's microphone. So if we all mute our mics while we're not talking, and then just unmute to talk, I think that might resolve the issue, if that's okay.
Feedback.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of quotes from himself, Carl Jung himself, that really kind of highlights the importance of working with the shadow self, but also highlights how many of us just don't even know it's there, or we try and ignore it and avoid it. So he said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. And they'll practice Indian yoga and all its exercises. They'll observe a strict regime or diet. They'll learn literature from the whole world, all because they cannot get on with themselves and have not the slightest faith that anything useful could ever come from their own souls. Thus, the soul has gradually been turned into a Nazareth from which nothing good can come. So what he's saying there is, we concentrate, that's what I said, we concentrate on the good qualities we think the world wants us to project. So we do all these good things like, the meditation and eating the right healthy foods. So we do everything that's kind of considered light and positive, to try and ignore those facets and aspects of ourselves that are negative. And then he goes on to say, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. So it kind of goes against the grain of what people think you should be doing. So if you don't do that shadow work, you could think it's just all about thinking positive thoughts and happy thoughts and just working with light, but that's not what it's about. It's about
this links in what you with what you were saying last week as well about what did you call it?
Spiritual bypassing.
Yes. Yeah. And sort of ignoring emotions and putting them down, you know, you should all be thinking lighter and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's really interesting. And again, as like an emotion coach, again, I would be saying you have to feel your emotions and identify them, because that's the key to who you are and anything that's blocking you, isn't it?
Yeah. So. It's so unhealthy to, like he said, a lot of his work was working with people that suppress those emotions, and that it can lead to mental health disorders and illnesses, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem. It can keep you stuck, so you don't reach your potential because you're just stuck where you are and you don't think you can achieve anything else. Or you get really angry and lash out and maybe make really bad choices because you're not listening to your own inner guidance and soul. You're kind of ignoring that part of yourself that is actually screaming out. If we were to listen, it's screaming out. It's a bit like working with the inner child. You know, we are programmed from, and you know, not just from this lifetime, but if you believe in reincarnation, past life issues can come up and cause problems and compound the shadow self, because we're not just carrying baggage from this lifetime but previous. So it's a massive topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
People.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add anything to that? Claire, have you got any thoughts? Or
I think a bit like what Joe said, you can't be love and light all the time. Sometimes you don't like someone. Sometimes you just don't, and you don't even have to have a particular reason. It's your intuition or your truth that says, just because the whole room likes that one person, you don't have to join in. If you physically don't, or something is not for you, that's okay. Because sometimes what you find is down the line, that person does show their true colours and you go, I just knew I shouldn't have hung around to get hurt by that person. And everyone else is moaning that they got hurt by this person and you knew. So I think the more accepting you are of your shadow self as being your guidance, the probably better quality of relationships you'll have. And what I don't like is when people, they do something, they snap at someone or whatever, because we're just humans, and they're still eating them up 20 years down the line. And they're still 20 years going, oh my God, I cringe at that time that I said that, I did that. You know what? No one else really cares. But some people just carry it with them for so long and it's so unhealthy. It is okay to go, you know what? I reacted because that's how I felt at the time. And you know what? Everyone else might have thought I was being a bit dramatic or whatever, but you needed to get that out. Obviously, you don't hurt people for the fun of it, and you don't. But if you genuinely need to get something out, you've got to get it out. I think if you need to apologise to someone, obviously do it, but don't hold it. Don't torture yourself for years because of one thing that you did that was not quite, like Joe said, up to the rest of the population standards, because no one's perfect. Absolutely no one. There's not one person on this planet who is 100% perfect. And it's just not right when people try and hold themselves to this unachievable.
It's interesting when you said that, Claire, because when we don't like somebody or we don't like what somebody's saying or how they're behaving, if you look at Carl's work, actually, that if you work with the shadow self, that often is they're holding a mirror up to you. So it's often that part of our shadow self that's been triggered because we recognize that quality in that person, and it's not them that we're judging, it's actually that part of ourselves doing the same or something similar, or we have that similar thought, but we don't want to admit that, so we kind of project the blame onto the person that we're looking at that we don't like their actions.
Absolutely.
But actually, we'll be looking at it.
I do want to come back to that in a few minutes, but first of all, Sorry, I know Mama Jen has been doing some work on forgiveness and some talks on forgiveness in the group. So it'd be interesting just while you're talking about forgiving yourself, Claire, if we just go over to Mama Jen for her views, if it's okay.
What can I say? I need therapy.
We all need therapy.
I obviously need therapy. I'd never heard of the shadow self. I know I've always blamed myself for things. When relationships have ended, I've put myself through the mill. What did I say? What did I do? I've always blamed myself. It's weird. So that's all I can say, really. Even now, even when I'm giving my talk, I'm thinking, that's rubbish. That doesn't make sense. And I start picking at that. So yes, I need.
That's a shadow belief.
That's a shadow what? Sorry.
The shadow belief.
Yeah.
That's your shadow self acting out, and we have these beliefs like I'm not good enough. That was rubbish. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. Those are all shadow beliefs.
None of us are perfect. I know that. But we take it inward. We take it all in. We blame ourselves, you know. We beat ourselves up about silly things. And I used to sit there and think, oh, I wish I was tougher. I wish I was harder. I wish that didn't bother me. You know, like other people, it seems to go over the head. With me, and presume other people, we absorb it. And it's tough. So yeah, book me in.
I think that's why when you're doing spiritualism, sorry, I'm just going to mute you 1 second. Sorry, Mama Jen, I've just muted you 1 second because there's a little bit of feedback. I'll mute you in a second. When you're doing your spiritual work, quite often that's why you've got to do a lot of inner work first. And if you're doing any healing work, you've got to do that healing on yourself first, because it's that old adage, isn't it? Heal thyself. You've got to do your own work before you can truly support someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do ask for help. Sorry?
You've got to do the shadow work.
Is there a book? Is there a manual? Is there help?
There's lots of things we can do.
Good. Write a list.
I'm just going to come back to Joe now. Sorry. I'm just going to come back to Joe now with the talk about mirrors and the mirror self, because this is something I always find fascinating. And it's something that I've told my kids as well as they're getting older, that quite often if people are having a go at them, it's because they're seeing something that's reflected back on them. Do you want to just talk us through that, Joe, and what the mirror?
Yeah, that was one of Carl Jung's beliefs, that we're triggered by what people say and do and how they act, because we recognize that trait that's in them, but it's actually part of our shadow self that we're trying to deny, or that we're not even consciously aware of, and we're trying to go, that's not me, I would never say that or do that, but actually we have that thought, and we kind of, so we don't want to judge ourselves, so we'd rather judge somebody else. So it kind of triggers you.
Could that be linked to a past life as well? Not necessarily.
Yes. Yeah. So we're usually not conscious of past lives, because if we did remember everything that happened to us in past lives, it would alter. We would make different choices in this lifetime based on what we were doing. So we come here knowing nothing. So it's kind of like a blank canvas. And sometimes it's valuable to go looking back at those lives to see where issues come from. So as I said, when we're ignoring or suppressing that shadow side of ourselves, sometimes it will a lot of the time it will manifest and project out. And sometimes it's valuable to look at past lives to see where that originated from so that we can work on it. So it's a really valuable tool. So yeah, it could come from this lifetime, or it could come from past lifetimes.
It's interesting, and I remember telling you about this, Joe, a while ago. I went in a local shop, and it was just for a spare part for a piece of machinery, and somebody came out of the back, and he was so helpful, he was so polite, but I had an instant, like Claire was saying, sometimes you don't like someone and there's just a feeling. It was like the hairs on the back of my head stood up and I couldn't get out of the shop quick enough, and I couldn't understand why. I'd never met this bloke. He did absolutely nothing wrong. He was perfectly polite and helpful, but when you just get a really bad vibe. And I was talking to you about it, Joe, weren't you? And you're saying it could maybe have been a past life connection, and that sort of soul recognizing. But it was really interesting. So I'm assuming that's a part of my shadow self. And my soul was recognized something in someone else.
Yeah. And again, if you believe in reincarnation and you believe that we all are part of the same soul group and we have a soul contract, it's a little bit like watching a soap opera. So if you're a big fan of Corrie, then there are episodes 3 times a week, whatever it is now. There's a cast, so you always see the same characters on the screen at the same time. So that's kind of the best way to explain it, is we're all part of this big soap opera. We've all made a contract and signed it to come here, and I play Joanne, Anita plays Anita, Melanie plays Melanie, and so on. We've all agreed that we're going to be here at this time before we even was born into this body. And then the next time we come back and have another lifetime, we'll probably all still be part of the same lifetime together, but we might be different roles. So I might be Mel's next door neighbour. We might just bump into Jen in the street and never see her again. So we'll just play different parts, usually all together. So you are going to come across people that you don't recognize physically, but you know them at a soul level, or they trigger you for some reason. So,
Anne said the same. She agrees with Mama Jen. She always goes over everything and blames herself. So how do we start?
Shadow belief. That's a really good. That's $1 million question.
I think the first thing is you've got to learn to recognize when you're doing it, don't you? And a lot of people aren't aware that you're doing it because you just allow your thoughts to carry you off. And that's where meditation can really help, because through practicing meditation, you're going to become aware of your thoughts. And once you recognize those thoughts, one of the things that I tend to do is step back and observe it and sort of track where it's coming from. So, and one good technique that I've used in the past is, and I've seen used is, when did I last feel like that? Or was there a time before when I last felt like that? And, sort of track it a little bit and see where it takes you and what memories that brings up for you, because then you're facing the shadow self. You're not just being a victim of the shadow self.
Yeah. So being mindful is really important.
Yeah. So Anita's joined us. Hi, Anita.
Yeah.
Hi. And have you anything that you want to say about the shadow self at the moment? I know you've literally just joined the conversation, so you might want to.
I mean, my understanding of what I feel about it is, it is about how we don't see the other side of ourselves. So, it's like, how can I explain? It's like trying to look in a mirror, but being more objective. So, so there may be things that you don't like about yourself, but what you try and do is you hide them, or you try and, put them in the back of your mind. Because one of the things that I find about myself is sometimes I feel like I can be quite overbearing with people. And it's not I'm trying to be overbearing. It's the fact that I've got this energy where I like to really help people. And sometimes it can make them feel that I'm actually trying to be, I'm trying to mollycoddle them, or, that sort of thing. So that's what I feel about it anyway. So I think it's just the other side of you trying to sort of not put self-doubt into your mind, but that you've got characteristics that you try to sort of put to the back of your mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a really good exercise you can do where you write down a number of qualities that you feel you have, positive qualities, And then basically the opposite of those are all your shadow beliefs or your shadow self aspects. So in answer to Anne's question, sit down and write down all the traits that you think you have that are positive, and then look at the opposite of those. And then be mindful of when that happens. So as Mel said, meditation is a really good tool for homing in on what you're thinking and feeling. Because a lot of the time we're reacting and not responding. So we're not thinking about what we really feel inside. We're just programmed to react in a certain way. And I say we can be really triggered by certain people or their actions or circumstances. So it's about stopping and not reacting and just taking that moment to say, where's this coming from? Why am I being triggered? Why do I feel this? What am I feeling and why do I feel this way? That's the shadow work. It's not about ignoring it and going, that's not me, I don't think like that. It's about going, why am I thinking like that? Where is that coming from? And then you can start, so when you integrate both, as Anita said, it's that part of ourselves that we kind of hide because we don't like to think we're thinking not good things or we're not feeling good, because we're bombarded all the time with, aren't we? We've talked about this a few weeks ago, positive toxicity. We're bombarded all the time. We should think positive and just think happy thoughts and everything will be okay. And that's healing, as we said before, is not all unicorn and rainbows, and shadow work is not easy because you've really got to be honest with yourself. We are this mask we project to the world, but we're underneath that. There are some things we need to work on. And to work on them, you need to know what they are. So that would be your starting point. Work out what your shadow beliefs are. And as Mummy Jen said before, it's the thoughts of I'm not good enough, or I'll never be good enough, or my feelings aren't valid, or why can't I just be like everyone else? If you find yourself judging other people, that's a big clue. Because when we judge, it's our shadow self that's judging that person. So look at what it is that you're judging, because it's often you're judging yourself, but you're projecting that onto somebody else and making it their fault. Or if you're the kind of person that goes, oh, it's never, that you think it's never your fault, it's always, oh, it's that person's fault, or it's that person's fault, and never taking responsibility and admitting and owning up to your mistakes. It's okay to get things wrong. It's okay to not be okay. But like I said before, suppressing these things and not working with your shadow self can lead to real serious mental health issues and serious anxiety disorder. So it's really important that we use the tools that we have. Journaling's a really good tool because, again, we're sort of in automatic pilot mode a lot of the time. So we're just going about our business and getting things done. We're all busy. So we're not often in touch with what we're actually thinking and feeling. We're just in auto mode. So journaling can just help to stop you and write your thoughts down and then read them back. And I bet you'd be surprised sometimes what you're actually thinking and feeling.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to check, Mama Jen, I've just unmuted you. Are you able to unmute yourself? I don't want to just silence you for the going.
I've nothing on here that says I'm muted.
That's interesting.
Can you hear me?
I can, but there's an echo on the call. So
do you want me to go out and come back in?
You can try it if you want. Yeah, see if that helps.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I just didn't want poor Mama Jen to feel that we'd muted her and she couldn't join in the conversation.
Back on a mic.
We'll come back on a phone. It happened the other day, didn't it? And it was fine on a phone. So, yeah, we'll see when she comes back. We may have two Mama Jens. Let's see. Hi, Mama Jen, you're back. Ooh.
She's hiding.
She's working on that shadow self.
I don't tell.
So while we're waiting for Mama Jen, who recognises some of those shadow beliefs?
Oh, I definitely do.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Have you got any more that I didn't mention?
Yeah, because, I mean, for me, I've worked on probably the last 5 years. I've obviously when after I became ill, I worked a lot on, and one of the things that did really, really affect me was self-esteem. So having to go back to basics and look at everything around me, how I interact with other people, seeing the strength coming through as well. Is that so?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, that's strange.
We're still in retrograde.
It won't surprise me. Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, so I would say, me personally, yeah. I mean, obviously now I don't, and it's took me a long time, but I don't take fools gladly. In the sense now, I will say my piece. I try not to be angry, or I try to be subjective, and then that's it. It's gone. Whereas before I used to hold on grudges, and it used to keep, and it festers, and you've got to let go. So meditation, like you mentioned before, is a big key to it all.
I think I've spotted what's going on with Anita's sound. Have you seen the orb at the side of her?
Ah.
You've got a brilliant blue orb just at the side of you, the direction you just looked.
Yes, I can see myself now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interfering with the sound.
To be at all. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah. But yeah, great. It's great. I mean, like I say, it's just knowing something that's different, and about your growth and about like self-esteem. It's a big thing when your self-esteem goes and you're really struggling to, say sorry about things, because that was one of the biggest things I used to say sorry about everything. And sometimes, even now, if someone walks in front of me and I've opened, say example, if I'm opening the door and someone walks in front of me, I always say sorry, even though it's not my fault. I'll always say sorry.
Yeah.
Andy does that as well. I keep saying you've got to stop apologising for everything.
But then I realise I've done it. But you can't take it back once you do it. But I've realised. So.
Yeah. Hi, Mama Jen, you're back.
You can see me. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's better.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Oh, right.
No feedback.
I've sheep behind that. That's why I keep muting myself, because
You got sheep.
oh
Yeah.
I can just keep
Got your
hearing
kittens running around.
Yeah. A couple of sheep and a lamb. So they keep barring quite loudly. So that's what...
Fantastic. Can you not hear us, Mama Jen?
Can she not hear us?
No, I don't think she can hear us.
There you go.
Yeah, she's not muted.
No? She needs to turn the phone up.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, there's certainly fun and games on this call tonight. So the Mercury Mercury.
Tell you what, it's been when we
She's interfering with my speech now.
I know, and it's still happening now.
Communication.
I think we need that blue Anita that's with you.
Away. She can't hear anything.
No. Oh dear.
She hasn't got a phone on silent, has she? I know it sounds.
Who knows with Mama Jen?
No, because she could hear her. Oh yeah. Oh, I don't know, because we could hear her, couldn't we? She just couldn't hear.
She got off again.
She's gone off again. Yeah. Hopefully she'll try again, or she'll appear in the group.
Mel, what are your shadow beliefs?
And obviously, we've got the last day of May today as well, aren't we? So, we can put it down to that as well, can't we? Oh, wait, here she comes again. Can you hear us now, Jen?
Can you hear me, Mother?
Can you hear me?
No. Oh. Are you on mute? Oh. I don't know. Join us in Facebook. Look. She can maybe type in Facebook and join us in the group that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear, that's a shame. Oh well. So let's see in the comments what we got. So Anne said she's going to try that, but I think that's going back to what you were saying about your mindfulness. And you're making your list before as well. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah.
I always actually talking about when Anita said that sometimes she says sorry all the time when she opens the door for someone, or if she's in front of someone or whatnot. I always think if that's always a really good sign. So if you hold the door open for someone and they just walk through it and don't even say thank you, that's them displaying their shadow self. And that can really trigger you, because sometimes you go, you didn't even say sorry, or you'll be like, oh yeah, thank you, or and it can
That's definitely what happened.
Yeah, and it is, and all day you'll think that's that one person who just stormed and didn't even say thank you, but ultimately they were showing their shadow self, which triggered your shadow self. So a lot of the time, if that does happen to me, it's not really common, because I can tell who's going to be a bit of a knob, so I don't even open the door in the first place. But on the odd occasion, when someone trots through without even a backward glance, it's up to me if I want to react or not. So I might inside, I might go, you know what, you're welcome. I know I did a nice thing. If they can't recognise that because they're in a huff up, that's fine. But you got to let it go at that point. Don't hold on to it. Just don't.
Yeah.
Just send them off on their way.
I love the whole theory of Ho'oponopono, because when you look at Ho'oponopono, it's a Hawaiian healing system, and it's very basically based on 4 terms. So, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And those 4 phrases are so, so powerful. But the underlying belief behind it is that, quite rightly, we're responsible in some way for everything that's going on around us. We create our own reality. If we're there, then we've got some involvement in some sense. She's back. So it's when you're saying Ho'oponopono, people use it to heal rifts in family. If there's family arguments, you can use it sort of on yourself, but the idea is you're not necessarily healing the person, you're healing yourself and your part in whatever's going on. And it really is quite a powerful technique. So if you're finding that you're feeling really angry about a situation or about something that someone's done, it's just that stop. Just do the Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And then you're releasing anything in yourself that's connected with that, and I think that links very well with the shadow self, because like you say, if you're seeing things that are making you angry, then that's reflecting back something in you, that's triggering something in you that needs healing, and you need that forgiveness for, and think about those words as well. I'm sorry, it's allowing yourself to accept responsibility. Please forgive me. It's allowing yourself to forgive yourself. Thank you. Gratitude is just so important. It really does raise your vibration. And I love you, what higher vibration is than those words, so it's a really key phrase. And the more you say it, the more you notice that the load will lighten. So it really is quite a very simple and a very powerful healing technique, which I think is perfect for the shadow self.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right.
It's why it's one of our spiritual tools in this quarter's course coming up.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and it is a really powerful tool. So yeah, worth doing.
So with shadow work, that's probably one of the most valuable tools that we've got.
Yeah,
it's having the courage to face those parts of you that we don't want to admit we've got, or it's too scary to look at.
And for those who are new to the group, who may not necessarily know, the module that's coming up, we do have a Feel the Vibes membership program, where we offer sort of training and development programs, little mini courses throughout the year, and we also run 2 development sessions via Zoom. So every fortnight there's a call via Zoom, and one of those sessions you get to practice your spiritual development, whatever that might be. It might be pendulum, it might be mediumship, it might be card readings, whatever you want to work on for yourself. There's an opportunity to do that in a small Zoom class with us. And also there's a deep dive development call, which is once a month as well, and that's where we teach you aspects of spirituality to help you develop. And there's lots of other resources in there as well. So if that's not something that you've seen yet, do check out the membership page and have a look at that. You know, it's definitely well worth it. So yeah, so fantastic. So has anyone got anything else that they want to ask? Anne, have you got any questions that you want to ask? And Mama Jen, now that you're back with us, have you got anything that you want to add? Or
No, I mean, none of us are perfect. We put on this earth to learn, and that's what we're doing. But we've, you know, we think we know ourselves, but we don't know ourselves to that extent. There's a side of us we like, there's a side of us that we don't like, and we try and correct it. We can only do our best. And that's what I aim for.
And that's all that you can aim for, isn't it?
Yeah. When before, when I went off, I still, although the pictures went off, I could still hear. So fantastic. I'm glad you weren't saying anything. Mama Jen is definitely a technophobe.
We said that.
Mama Jen is absolutely brilliant, because look at what you're achieving. You're getting on here every week. You're doing your Facebook lives and everything. There's a lot of people who are a lot younger than you who can't do that. So I think you do amazingly well.
But going back to, I heard something about if you hold the door open for someone, they just walk through. That happens to me a lot. And I always say in a very loud voice, "Thank you."
Good for you.
That's so it might not be Ho'oponopono, but it's a thank you.
Fantastic.
That's your shadow self saying thank you.
Well, that's something.
At least you're not saying anything else.
Yeah, maybe you want to share what you say when you're road raging.
The divine in me, yeah. We'll skip that.
We'll skip that.
That's a mixed age range.
A bit rude.
Fantastic. Right, so it's been really interesting. I don't know about everybody else and those of you watching. If you're watching, please let us know. #replay in the comments. Let us know your thoughts, what comes up with for you when we're talking about the shadow self. We'd love to hear your views as always. And as usual, do post any comments, any questions that you've got in the group, because we do read everything afterwards, and we'll still be jumping in and answering questions later on. So, but I've learned absolutely loads myself today, and it's been absolutely fascinating. So thanks everyone for sharing such brilliant information as usual, and we will disappear for now, and we will be back at the same time next week. See you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.